Take your seat. The human adventure is just beginning.
Welcome, I'm Scott Knoll, the editor and publisher of DreamForge Anvil and DreamForge Magazine, and today we're going to have an introduction to the DreamForge channel. Over the years we've met a lot of great people and we've learned a lot, and we want to be able to share that with you. So the DreamForge channel is going to have 4 areas of interest. We're going to talk about writing, we're going to talk about the magazine, we're going to talk about futurism, and we're going to have interviews with writers and guests in various areas of expertise. We're going to learn a lot and we're going to have a lot of fun. So each episode I'm going to be here with my AI and research assistant, Def, short for DreamForge.
Don't worry. I'll make sure this ship stays on course. Scott can be easily distracted, but my capabilities are limitless.
Thank you, Def. And today's goal is to basically give you a sample of the 4 areas of DreamForge. So we're going to get started and let you know what the channel's all about. So, Def, why don't we get things rolling?
DreamForge was founded in 2019 by Scott and Jane Knoll. Jane is my favorite. Anyway, our goal is to publish positive science fiction and fantasy. In all worlds and times, our tales revolve around those individuals and groups who bring meaning and value to the world, whose actions are of consequence, and whose dreams are the vanguard of things to come. From the start, Jane and Scott wanted to do a classy job. They've had stories by well-known voices like Robert Silverberg, David Weber, and Jane Linscold, as well as publishing first-time authors you'll come to know and love. Each story has its own illustration, and we've had covers by nationally known illustrators like John Blumen, Mark Zingarelli, and Hugo Award winner Elizabeth Leggett. In 2021, we added Dreamcasters, a Patreon support group where writers, fans, and guests get together to discuss writing, participate in writing challenges, and help move DreamForge forward. And now, let's hear from Scott. Keep it short, please.
I thought I'd give you a little bit of an idea of where Jane and I have come from. Jane and I met at a computer gaming company called DreamForge in the 1990s, where Jane worked in art. She was an art director and line artist. And I came into gaming through content development. After my win at Writers of the Future, I was hired to create game text and dialogue, that sort of thing, and the manuals that went with the games. And we both ended up growing into positions of project development, where we worked on computer games together, including Roger Zelazny and Jane Linscold's Chronomaster and various Dungeons and Dragons titles. After a while, Jane left computer gaming and founded her own company, which today is known as Chroma Studios, and I joined her about a year later. And we've both been working together at Chroma Studios for about the last 23 years, where we make websites and do web development and digital marketing, and now we're into some software development as well. In 2019, when it looked like I might have a little extra time on my hands, I decided to found a science fiction magazine just for a new adventure. And one of the driving forces behind that was the idea that I'd seen in a lot of fiction and on TV, not just the fun of apocalyptic thinking and what might happen, in terms of robot revolutions and zombie apocalypses, but it almost seemed to me that people were kind of expecting that. It's not just fictional fun, but it's actually the future that people actually see for the human race. And that's not what I see at all. So DreamForge is a counter to that. We look at more hopeful adventures. We look at a future that's brighter, where the human adventure is just beginning. And that's what I truly believe. And that's one of the things that we'll get across, both in DreamForge Magazine and in the DreamForge channel here, as we talk about various subjects and get into that. Where did the apocalyptic thinking come from? Why do people believe that sort of thing? And what's really happening in terms of the development of the human race? So that's what we're going to be about there. Now, what happened at the end of 2019? COVID started to happen, and then 2020. And when you're talking about apocalypses, well, that certainly put a lot of stress on both us personally and our businesses, and damaged them financially, and caused some problems. But we're still here. and we're still both working at Chroma Studios, and we're still doing DreamForge. So our budgets might be a little more limited, but we're actually expanding what we do in areas that we don't need the kind of resources that we did when we started. And the DreamForge channel is an example of that. We're going to get things going and talk to some interesting people and see about continuing to move things forward. We've had some amazing opportunities with DreamForge. We have managed to work with Uproar Books to create this anthology, The Worlds of Light and Darkness. And this is also an anthology that contains 20 stories, 10 of which are from us and 10 from Space and Time magazine, where we've partnered with Angela Rico Smith in some interesting ways to do some really cool work. We've managed to do some amazing art, some amazing covers and things for DreamForge magazine, and some great stories. And we continue to love to do that sort of thing. So DreamForge is alive and well and moving on to the future. And we hope you'll join us here at the DreamForge channel, where we'll be talking about both the magazine and topics about writing and many fun things. And hopefully we'll get you to be optimistic about the future too, because that's what we want to imagine. We want to imagine the best for all of us.
Personally, I'm looking forward to the interviews. For example, let's talk to Jane. Jane is the founder of Chroma Studios, a digital marketing agency located in Jeannette, Pennsylvania. She holds a degree in visual communications from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh and more years of experience than she cares to count. Before founding Chroma, Jane worked as an artist, art lead, art director, and project manager for the computer game developer DreamForge Entertainment, where she worked on a number of early computer games, including Roger Zelazny's Chronomaster.
Okay, cool. Jane's here with us, and this is our introduction to the DreamForge channel video. And as I was explaining to the folks, when I started to try to put DreamForge together, I was looking at it as a project that I would do myself and give me some additional things to do and some creative stuff. And Jane really wanted to be involved with that and make it look good, because that's her job. She's the designer, and she does the layout and illustrations and that sort of thing. And Jane, really, what made you look at what I was doing and say, I gotta help this guy and not make him look so bad?
I'd say probably one of the biggest influences was Realms of Fantasy. When back in the day when that magazine was out, I absolutely loved the look of it. And there were other magazines I really enjoyed, but they didn't have the look and feel that Realms of Fantasy had. And it was just beautifully illustrated and glossy cover, and it just looked nice. And that's as important to me as having good stories. And I knew we were going to have good stories. We have a lot of talented writers that are writing stories for us. I knew we'd have great stories, but I wanted them to be appreciated visually. And the idea of making sure that from the very first issue, every story had its own look and feel, almost like colors associated with it, fonts, logo type, something that made that story look different from the next story, look different from the next story. And that was just always something that was a very important aspect of it.
Well, and you really do that job. It would have nothing like the look and feel. I have no design sense, even when we're working in our day jobs, I can't tell, one color from the other sometimes. So that's really appreciated. What are some of your favorite experiences in working in our first couple of years with the magazine, as far as either working with illustrators or something that you worked on that you really love?
Well, I really enjoyed working with other illustrators when we had the budget to do that. They would be able to come up with concepts or ideas to put forth in the story in bigger ways than I could imagine, or different ways than I could imagine. And I think that was, amazing. From the very, very first issue, John Blumen did the illustration for Smith's Point. And that was something I would have not thought of for that illustration and that story. And it was so perfect. And so it was kind of fun to work with other people. But as we didn't have the budget to hire as many talented artists as we did, I didn't want to lose the look and to give, an illustration to every story. And I'm much more of a graphic designer than I am an illustrator, but I'm good with Photoshop and I've had years of experience with Photoshop. I learned Illustrator, I learned InDesign, um, so that we can do something for every story. So even though I'm not sure we have quite the same level of illustration that we had before, I know we don't have the same level of illustration. I didn't want to let down the design aspect of it anyway. And that's what I've strived to do over the last year. There were 6 issues and pretty much all the illustrations except for, we were fortunate to get Elizabeth Leggett to do the cover and Frank Schurter to do the cover. They had both been doing art for us from the beginning. And their illustrations then became the cover of the print magazines that we did.
Well, I don't think people realize how much you have to do, as far as it's just not layout, but you're doing a print layout, you're doing ebook layouts in Mobi and EPUB formats, and you're doing layout in the online portal. So there's an enormous amount of work there to do.
Yeah, I take the one printed, like the one document that has been proofed, and save that in a format that I can pick up and use in each of them. And I have learned over this past year of doing the ebooks as well as, like we've always done digital and print, but to do the ebooks as well, I'm learning how to do the art so that when I create the original image, I can take it and say, size it for this, size it for that, size it for that. I have even, because in Photoshop things are in layers, and I've even made the layers so that I can have a vertical layout on a Kindle cover for that story, because I have to have that be vertical, but I can have a horizontal layout by just rearranging the pieces. And I kind of plan my design around that ability to have vertical or horizontal designs working at the same time. That's more interesting than, if you know you're working vertical or you're working horizontal, but when you've got to make it work in both of them, it's a little more challenging.
What are you looking forward to here as we get into 2022? Are there any new techniques that you want to try, or new areas? I know, for instance, one of the things you wanted to get into were t-shirt designs and and being able to offer some merch on the site. So what are you looking forward to this year?
Yeah, the t-shirt stuff, I had a couple up, and I'm going to work on more ideas for designs and some more art from the stories to get up into the t-shirt portal. And there's other products that program can offer us too, like mugs and other kinds of things, notebooks and stuff like that. So I will look at being able to reuse some of the same art and design on a lot of these other kinds of merchandise. I want to continue to do more with ebooks and learn more about ebook production, doing that for some other people as well. And it's just a interesting thing to learn the technology of it. It's not that far off of web design technology, so there's a lot of aspects that are similar that made it pretty easy to pick up and get started with that, and some good software and some good advice from friends too. So that's all kind of new and different, and I want to just kind of keep going with learning new things. We're learning video and video editing. I've been doing some video editing through the Dreamcasters as we put those meetings together. So the video and that kind of idea of it, the motion graphics is going to be something coming up.
Okay, one last thing that you didn't mention was this year also gave you the opportunity to do several book covers. You did a couple book covers for Jane Linskold in her novels that she's turning out in ebooks, and you did a book cover at FireCon as part of a challenge to basically put a book together during the con. So tell us a little bit about those experiences.
Well, it's fun. It's fun to work with authors to kind of do some of the different things, to bring their visions to life. With Jane Linskold, we did the book covers for Artemis Invaded and Artemis Awakening. I actually did the ebook layout for those as well. So that was something different. And I'm working with Wolf Moon on one of his covers. At FireCon, it was a blast. It was called a instant book show with Martin Shoemaker. And he dictates his book. So he went from dictation to transcribing, editing, making the cover, and putting it up in the 5 days of FireCon. And the book cover was Saturday night. And as of Saturday afternoon, I knew the story was set on Pluto and that it had to do with mining equipment. And that's pretty much what I had to go into it. So I had some stock images that were something I could work with. And Martin and I talked at the beginning of the show, and then I kind of talked my way through as I was doing things, and we came up with a cover that by the next day it was up on Amazon. So it's a short story, as opposed to a book, but it's still an ebook that's up there on Amazon, and it was called Service It 40K.
Excellent. Okay, well, this is just short as an example of what our interviews are going to be like, but I look forward to us working together and talking about what the magazines are going to be, because we're going to be talking about the issues and things like that, and having some guests. So look forward to having you back soon, and we'll move the DreamForge channel forward, which, by the way, we wouldn't have any graphics or art design or branding for without Jane. So thank you much, and that's it for today.
Bye.
Bye.
There's a lot to do at the DreamForge channel. Scott will also be putting together lessons in story writing. I especially like the plotting game he came up with. I love plotting.
So what else will we talk about on the DreamForge channel? Well, we're going to talk about writing, and when it comes to that, we're going to have videos on story structure and how to get started, on plotting and exposition, the many common mistakes that we see as we read stories. We've at this point read over 2,000 stories, I would imagine. Even in our latest reading period, we just had 500 submissions. So we see the same common mistakes over and over, and we can instruct people on that and help them get past them. And you can even join our Patreon support group, which we call Dreamcasters, and interact with us personally and with our guests and with our members, as we all help one another to master the craft of writing and to make better stories. We'll have games, writing challenges, and we've even had a writing challenge result in the publication of 2 short stories from the Dreamcaster group just within the last few months. So we'll have a lot on writing. If you're interested in writing, you want to get started, or you're a beginning writer, even an intermediate writer, and you want to hone your skills, we're going to try to provide some guidance in that and help you improve your craft. So we look forward to working with you and working on writing.
And then there's the part where I play more of a role. We're going to be talking about the future. Tell them about that, please.
In our Obiter Dictum videos, we'll talk about the universe, humanity, and the future of it all. One topic I'm looking forward to is about launch costs and how the falling cost of putting material into orbit foretells the future of our species. Def, why don't you give us a few figures on that?
The changes in launch to orbit technology have happened so fast that it's fair to assume humans don't realize what's happened yet. The first successful SpaceX Falcon 9 booster landing happened on December 21, 2015. Since then, Falcon 9 boosters have been landed and reused 100 out of 111 attempts. Put into service in 1981, the reusable space shuttle gradually reduced launch costs from $85,000 per kilogram to $27,000 per kilogram. In contrast, the launch of the SpaceX Falcon 1 in 2008 brought launch costs below $10,000 per kilogram. By 2017, Falcon 9, the reusable one, could launch for less than $2,000 per kilogram. Falcon Heavy launches material into low Earth orbit for under $1,000 per kilogram. That's just the start. Earth orbit is opening up in a way that has not been seen before and was hardly anticipated. The incredible diminution in launch costs indeed foretells a stunningly bright second half to the 21st century. The solar system awaits.
Hey, thanks for sticking around to learn a little bit about DreamForge and our plans for the years ahead and our hopes for the future. Please, if you liked us, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We hope to see you again next time, and until then, remember, imagine the best for all of us.